The Carolina Panthers are way more interesting than what people think. Before we get started, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you're listening at or viewing at. If you're seeing this clip on Instagram or TikTok, make sure to go follow over there as well. The Panthers last year were 7-10. They traded up in the draft to get the first overall pick, which they drafted Bryce Young first overall. They have Andy Dalton as their backup quarterback. And I think as much as we want to see what Bryce Young can do this year, Andy Dalton's going to be a great role model and a mentor for Bryce Young. Andy Dalton has been a starter and a backup in the league for over 10 years now, from his days with the Bengals to the Cowboys. I think he's going to be a great role model for Bryce Young. And I think Bryce Young can really absorb a lot of information from Andy Dalton to further his career and help him throughout this season and going forward. At the running back spot, they have Miles Sanders from the Eagles. And they got Chuba Hubbard, obviously. I think they're going to share touches. Both of them are pretty solid in the pass game as well. I think they're going to be both used in that. Bryce Young can really use his legs as well. So I think that those three guys right there can be kind of explosive throughout this year. At the wide receiver spot, they have Adam Thielen from the Vikings. DJ Shark is there, and then they drafted Jonathan Mingo in the second round out of Ole Miss. All three of these receivers, like Mingo has a lot of hype to him. DJ Shark, you know what you're going to get. Adam Thielen, obviously getting older and not the same Adam Thielen from the past. The one issue I have is, as much as these three guys are kind of they're good wide receivers, is they don't have a clear number one. Like, it's probably Thielen, which he was a solid number two behind Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. I don't see him being a number one wide receiver, especially at this point in his career. At the tight end position, they have Hayden Hurst. He's kind of hopped around the league a little bit, but he's a very solid tight end, kind of a middle of the pack tight end. Their offensive line is definitely the weak spot of their offense. They're more middle of the pack of the league, maybe lower of the middle of the pack, if that makes sense. So they're going to really need them to really show out this year and protect Bryce Young. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, and just about every metric in 2022, they were in the 20s in the league, which is obviously not good at all. They need to really improve this side of the ball. They have, at the defensive line position, Derek Brown. They drafted him 7th overall in 2020. He has kind of been a bust his first couple of years. Like, they needed him to take that step this year. They have Shai Tuttle as well on the defensive line. They got him from the Saints this offseason. The one really bright spot of this defense is their linebacker core, though. Brian Burns, 12.5 sacks last year in 2022. He's obviously a stud, one of the best linebackers in the league. You have Justin Houston, who's 34 years old now, a veteran. 9.5 sacks last year, though. He can still get it done. Maybe not to his prime level, but he can still produce. And they have Frankie Louvu, who had 7 sacks in 2022 as well. So I really do like their linebacker core. I like them way more than the defensive line. The defensive line has to improve this year. Like I mentioned, Derek Brown is a huge part of that. Talking about secondary now, J.C. Horn, obviously a young cornerback they have a lot of hope in. And they also have Dante Jackson on the other side. And in the safety room, they have Xavier Woods. I think this is his second or third year now with the Panthers. He played with the Cowboys in the past and the Vikings. Very reliable when it comes to games played. Always in their 16, 17 games a year. And then they also got Von Bell this offseason from Cincinnati. So he's obviously been in the big moments of the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship with the Bengals. So maybe that provides some veteran leadership and help to that defense. But that defense has to be better than what they were last year. Obviously, this whole team as a whole has to be better. But if this team is going to make improvements based off last year, I don't think looking at the playoffs is really reasonable thought to think of. But their defense has to improve. Their offensive line has to be better. And you want to see improvement out of Bryce Young just as the season goes on. Looking at their schedule a little bit here, they start week 1 at the Falcons, and I have them losing this one at the Falcons. I think overall they're going to be just around the same spot as the Falcons when it comes to the end of the season. You're going to see a really interesting trend I have here with the Panthers schedule. Week 2 at home versus the Saints, I have them losing this one. And then week 3 at the Seahawks, I have them losing that one. So I have them starting the year 0-3. Week 4 at home versus the Vikings, I have them winning this one, actually. I think Dalvin Cook off the Vikings is going to be a huge miss. And even Adam Thielen is like another wide receiver. I think that's really going to hurt the Vikings. We obviously haven't predicted the Vikings yet, but just keep that in mind whenever we get there. Week 5 at the Lions, I have them losing this one. And then week 6 at the Dolphins, I have them losing that one. It's really a tough stretch to start the year if you think about it. Week 7 is their bye. I have them going into their bye at 1-5. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of turmoil going on, a lot of Bryce Young hate probably going on during this time. But you have to kind of stay the course, because if you can get through these first 6 weeks, let's say they win 2 or 3 games, they're setting themselves up really nicely, because they come out of their bye with the Texans. And this is where I think they make a little bit of push here, even for the playoffs a little bit. I don't think they make it by any means, but I think they're going to make, on the screen when it says in the hunt, I think they're going to be one of those teams in the hunt, because they start off week 8 with the Texans. I have them winning this one. Week 9 versus the Colts, I have them winning this one. Week 10 at the Bears, I do have them losing that one, but it's very winnable. Week 11 at home versus the Cowboys, I have them losing this one. Week 12 at the Titans, a W. Week 13 at the Buccaneers, a W. Week 14 at the Saints, a loss. So I have them losing both versus the Saints this year. Week 15 at home versus the Falcons, I have them winning that one. So I have them splitting with the Falcons. Week 16 versus the Packers, I have them winning that one. Week 17 at the Jaguars, I have them losing that one. And then week 18 at the Buccaneers, or at home versus the Buccaneers, I should say, that I have them winning that one as well. So I have them going 8-9 on the season, which I think is very reasonable. And I also think even better than 8-9 is also reasonable. If you look at some of those losses I gave them a loss at the Bears, very winnable, like I said. Let's say you win week 1 at the Falcons. At the Seahawks is a possibility. At home versus the Saints in week 2, at the Lions week 5. Like, these are, I have them as losses, but they're very winnable games. Like, this team could be a 10-win team if their defense shows out and their offensive line protects Bryce Young. Also, like I said, the wide receiver room scares me a little bit, because there's not a clear number one. That might not be an issue when we look at the long term here throughout the season. That might not be an issue. They might just be able to spread it around and get a lot of touches to everybody. That might be the thing. Or Jonathan Mingo could pop off and be your number one wide receiver. It's hard to tell at this point before the season starts. But like I said, they were 7-10 last year, and I have them improving to 8-9 this year, with the potential of being a 10-win team and a playoff team. Like, they could be a wild card toss in this division. Also, I have the Saints, as you guys have seen in prior videos, and especially in the Saints episode. I'm very high on the Saints this year. I have them, I think I said 12-5. But this, besides the Saints, man, and even with the Saints, this is a very winnable division. The Buccaneers are obviously taking a step backwards without Tom Brady. The Falcons are going to be probably around that 500 mark. Hopefully Desmond Ridder goes off for them. That's their hope. And obviously the Saints, in my opinion, have the potential to be great this year, but they could also be around 500, as we've seen with Derek Carr and his teams that he has led in the past. So this is a Panthers team to very much keep an eye on throughout the season. I think for the Panthers, really lock in on those first 6 weeks, because those back 11 weeks of the season are very winnable games up and down there. If they can really show out these first 6 weeks and kind of make a statement, this team could definitely make the playoffs. Now, I don't have them there. Like I said, I have them in 8-9, but man, like, keep an eye on this Panthers team, guys, because they're going to be exciting to watch, but they're also going to be very interesting when it comes to potentially booting out some teams from the playoffs that we expect to be there. But that wraps it up for the Carolina Panthers. The next episode we have is the Atlanta Falcons, so be on the lookout for that. Of course, like, follow, subscribe, like I said at the beginning, wherever you're listening at or viewing at, and we will see you guys for the Falcons. Thanks, guys.